Good evening, race fans, and welcome into Season 2 of the Pro American Late Model Series presented by Harpoon Design. Tonight, we are here for the halfway point of the season at the Irwindale Speedway up here in Irwindale, California. And I'll tell you what, race fans, this track a little bit different than anything these drivers have been to so far this season. That said, already drivers are making their way down to the starting grid for our first heat race of the evening, so how about we take a look down there at our starting lineup. Starting out on the pole of this one, it is the driver who took home the first win of the season. That's going to be the 83 of Mr. Chase Johnson. Starting to his outside in the number 99, that is going to be rookie driver Billy Snodgrass making his first start of the season here with P.A.L.M.S. Back in the third position, that's going to be Mr. Jonathan Emerson rolling it off in P number 3 with Mike Sukup in the dropping bombs number 45 starting off P number 4. Fifth, going to go back to the 66 of Brent Mex with Benny Hogan in the 4 and Mr. Johnny B rounding out this 7-car heat race. As usual, going to be, looks like 3 heat races this evening, and if my sign-up sheet is correct here, no drivers risking elimination from tonight's event, which is always a little bit of a comforting thought for some of these drivers. But regardless, got to figure out where they are starting here this evening. Chase Johnson, Billy Snodgrass, your 2 front row drivers. Green flag up in the air here at the Irwindale Speedway. 15 laps is the distance for this first heat race, and we are 3 wide just like that through turns 1 and 2. Some drivers electing to go way up high, others going all the way down low, trying to go all the way down to the apron. 2 different strategies here by these drivers, and there are a couple of drivers all the way up in the middle as well. That is the 66 of Brent Mex that was trying the middle line there just a little bit. He's going to try to go up high here now as well, get around that 4 of Benny Hogan. Now, of course, as usual, only the top 5 will automatically be locking themselves into tonight's main event. But that said, it does not look like we have enough drivers to actually have any eliminations from the last chance qualifier, so it will just be a matter of determining starting position here tonight. And Chase Johnson off to a very solid lead early on in this heat race. You can see about half of a second gap between himself and Snodgrass. And then Sukup and Emerson battling it out for the third position. Sukup up on the high side. Emerson going way down low in that number 23 machine. And it is looking like that alternate line is at least allowing him to keep pace with that 45 machine. Generally speaking, here in Irwindale, we see the outside line being the place to be here. But Emerson's making it work down there in that number 23 machine, just not getting quite the run off the corner he needs to actually execute the pass. But he is managing to at least hold on to position. A little bit loose through turns 3 and 4 there. That's going to bump him back just a little bit. And now we see Snodgrass in that 99 trying to do the same thing, going way down below that apron, trying to get a pass on our race leader of Chase Johnson. You can see he's actually making it happen in the middle of the corner, but just not quite the run off the corner that he needs to make things work here. 8 laps left to go though in this first heat race. Emerson, the driver, on the cut line, trading it around with that 4 of Benny Hogan, and they're going to make contact. A little bit of beating and banging down the front stretch. Everyone keeps their late models pointed in the right direction though, but that's going to throw some of these drivers back here off their game just a little bit. And now Chase Johnson's going down to the apron. Johnson's going to try and shake things up here and see if he can't make something work different. And that might have just cost him the lead of this race. He's going way back up high, and he's going to scrape the outside wall. Billy Snodgrass, rookie driver in that number 99, is now your new race leader, but they're both going to go way down low this time by maybe a little bit of a nudge coming out of 4 there. These two drivers still neck and neck for the race lead, and Mike Sukup's here too. Sukup wants a piece of this action as well. And another little bit of contact between your race leaders, both of them going way down low. Sukup going up high, and Sukup actually getting the run off the corner, giving Johnson a little bit of a nudge there, but just no room to make it stick. And now Snodgrass has a little bit of breathing room to work with here. Both of them going down to the low line. Evidently something has worked down there. And now some of the drivers that even were running the high line earlier on in this race trying to make something stick down there. 3 laps left to go though. Benny Hogan now the driver on the cut line for this one in that number 4 machine. That will move Brent Mex and Johnny B into the last chance qualifier, depending on how these final 2 laps though. Brent Mex rocking a new paint scheme here tonight, running for the series title sponsor. That is a Harpoon design livery in that 66 down there, currently running back in the 6th position. That's that white flag up in the air. Billy Snodgrass holding on to the lead of this one without too much to worry about right now. Half a second between himself and Chase Johnson. That's going to be Mike Sukup and Jonathan Everson across the line here. Billy Snodgrass, rookie driver, making his first ever start with P.A.L.M.S. Now going to be taking home his win in his first heat race of the season. Just like that though, drivers getting themselves lined up for heat race number 2. So just like that, going to pop on back down to the Speedway. Let's take a look at our starting lineup for heat race number 2. Starting out on the pole of this one, it is the driver who's all the way back in 19th in the championship standings despite having the most wins of any driver so far this season. That is the 73 of Paulie Hartwig Jr. Starting his outside in that Monster Energy number 68, that is going to be Aaron Raymond starting on position number 2. Third place going to go back to the 85 of Mr. Brandon Kiger with the 28 of P.A.L.M.S. rounding out position number 4. The Canadian driver, Mr. David Cannon, going to be starting position number 5 in the 19, with Derek Colson in the Tony Stewart Foundation number 5, rolling it off position number 6. And rounding out this 7-car field, that's going to be Wesley Ray Jr. in the 65, rounding out heat race number 2. Course 15 laps going to be the distance here once again. Top 5 automatically lock themselves into the main event. The rest of them gotta go on to the LCQ. Honestly, we might actually not even have the LCQ if we don't have enough drivers here, so everyone might be locking themselves in here. If not, it will just be a race for starting position and not for actual entry into the main event, unless more drivers have signed up for the race in qualifying. That's that green flag up in the air, side by side for our race leaders going into turns 1, 2 in trouble. Brandon Kiger's around. Kiger around on the Speedway just like that. Caution flag not going to come out as he has it rolling here again. Paulie Hartwig Jr. still holding on to the front of this one. And Kiger, he's back out on the Speedway, but he's now back out on the Speedway 14 seconds behind our race leader, going to be making that 15 seconds just like that. Soon we could see him end up as lap traffic as these drivers are only setting 22-second lap times around the Speedway. And right now, Paulie Hartwig Jr. in that Exalta entry holding on to the lead fairly decently, but Aaron Raymond starting to put pressure down on the outside, which I'll tell you what, race fans, how many tracks have we been to this season where we could really say, oh yeah, drivers are putting pressure down on the outside line? That's not something we hear about a whole lot, especially here on the iRacing.com platform, more than in real life short track racings, where on a lot of these speedways take places like Nashville Fairgrounds, Langley Speedway, and maybe even Thompson, where generally it's only a one-lane track, and if you're not on that one lane, then you just don't have a chance at making a pass here. But we've seen drivers try the middle, we've tried the top, we've tried the bottom, we've tried even below the bottom, all the way down on the apron. Everyone is making some part of this speedway work here this evening. Looking a little bit further back, closest battle on the speedway currently is the battle between Mr. Derek Colson and Wesley Ray Jr. This is the battle for the 4th position. Both these drivers up 2 spots from where they qualified, as Cannon and Kiger both have had a bit of trouble. Cannon's back out on the speedway now, but does look like he actually came down pit lane. Not quite sure if that was a mistake on his part or it's not, but Cannon's now being scored almost 9 seconds back from the rest of the field, so he might have had a little bit of trouble earlier on in this one. Way at the time in scoring, though, he is still setting some pretty competitive lap times. He's actually setting faster lap times than the 2 drivers in front of him, Derek Colson and Wesley Ray Jr., but I don't know if it's going to be enough for him to close that gap in these next 6 laps. Colson and Ray still the closest battle on the speedway, though. Ray closed the gap on Colson just a little bit there. And once again, we see drivers taking 2 very different lines through these corners. Colson going way up high, and Wesley Ray Jr. in that Mobile 1 entry trying to make it work way down low, and it looks like he might just make it stick off the corner here. Not quite, though. Wiggle coming out of turn number 2, and he's going to lose all that ground he just made up on Derek Colson there. 4 laps left to go for heat race number 2. And still these 2 drivers duking it out close to the battle on the speedway. 0.4 of a second separating these 2 late model stock drivers. And up at the front of the field with 3 laps left to go, Paulie Hartwood Jr. is holding on to the lead of this race without much to worry about. 2 wins to his name so far this season. And I'll tell you what, race fans, this driver is only 12 years old, competes in the real world, and here he is smoking drivers that range anywhere from, of course, age 12 like he is all the way up into their 50s and 60s here. So all different levels of experience here in the Pro American Late Model Series, and evidently Paulie Hartwood Jr. is showing that age doesn't necessarily correlate with it, because this kid has been fast for weeks now, and with white flag up in the air, he is going to be looking to take home another heat win here this evening. And who knows, he might just try to go on and make it win number 3 here at the Irwindale Speedway. But before we can get to that, we got 1 more heat race left to get sorted out here tonight, race fans. And as Paulie pulls it on down into pit lane, we're going to get things sorted out for heat race number 3. And of course, taking a look on down to the starting grid here tonight, starting out on the pole of this one, that's going to be the number 12, the Temp Setters Racing entry. That's going to be our championship leader, Mr. Kenny Tripp. Starting to his outside in the number 42, that is going to be Dylan Hahn, a driver that is also outside of the top 15 in the championship standings, but has a win to his name here tonight. Back in 3rd place, that's going to be one of the Dropping Bombs Racing drivers. That's going to be the 10 of Steven Rex, with the number 36 of Mr. Will Salomon starting to his outside in position number 4. 5th place going to go back to that 17 of Sean Patrick, another Dropping Bombs Racing driver, with Scott Bendix starting back in position number 6 in the Lucas Oil Racing entry. Finally, rounding out our 3rd race of the evening, that is going to be the 6 of Tommy Mitchell in 7th position. So you know the drill right now, race fans. Going to be 15 laps up for grabs for these late model drivers to get themselves sorted out, figure out the starting order for our main event coming on later here this evening. And sure enough, it does not look like we will be having an LCQ here tonight, as we only have 21 drivers. Of course, the cutoff limit, 22. So the iRacing.com pace car going to pull on down to the safety of pit lane, and we are going to get this thing rolling here this evening. Kenny Tripp, Dylan Hahn, your front row for heat race number 3, and we are going, and what a jump Kenny Tripp got. That is probably the biggest lead we have seen off the start-finish line so far this evening. But just behind him, 2 by 2, Dylan Hahn and Steven Rex battling out. Rex going way down low, Hahn trying to make that high line work. And just behind him, 3 wide for 4th, 5th, and 6th. These drivers really trying anything they can make stick here this evening. A little bit of a wiggle. That's Sean Patrick. A little bit loose coming off of turn number 2. That's going to allow Scott Benedicts to catch up, and Benedicts is going way down low. Once again, finding ourselves 3 wide through the corner. Benedicts back in that 88 machine. Falling back now just a little bit here. But what a move he was trying to make there in that 88 machine. And up in the front, we have a change for position. Dylan Hahn, your new race leader. He's going way up high, and now it's Kenny Tripp's turn to try and make the low line work. Not quite going to happen that time by, but still 12 laps left to go. Still time for these drivers to try and figure something out here. And of course, the battle in the mid-pack not calming down whatsoever. Sean Patrick getting around that 88 of Scott Benedicts. And both of them are both right on Will Salamone's tail. Salamone does not have a lot of comfort room to play with here. Salamone going to try the higher line just to see if he can't get some sort of run off the corner and get away from these 2 drivers that are beating and banging just behind him. A little bit of a nudge between the 2 of them coming out of 4, and they are still battling it out in turns 1 and 2. Patrick trying the low line, and he is going to drift up a little bit, not quite the run off the corner he needed. So definitely the low line has potential here if you can make it stick, and I think that's just a very big what if that is hanging up some of these drivers. Sure, you can go down there and make some time up, but can you get the run off the corner? You need to hold on to that position. Kenny Tripp certainly going to be trying with it though. Not quite down as low as we've seen the other drivers go. It's a little bit of contact there between your race leaders. Tripp running more of the center of the speedway. Hahn way up high there, almost against the outside wall. And side by side with 7 laps left to go, neither of these drivers are giving an inch here. Of course, while it's nowhere near as influential as winning an actual race, there are a couple of points in the championship standings to be picked up if you manage to win your respective heat race. Kenny Tripp is our championship leader coming into tonight's event, but he's only leading the championship by 5 points. Mark Whitley, Chase Johnson, both drivers right behind him, and Tripp going to try a little bit of a crossover there, and I don't know if that's quite going to work for him. 5 laps left to go here. Dylan Hahn now going to be the driver down on the low line. And once again, we find ourselves in quite the similar situation. The only difference here is who's up top and who is way down low there. But Hahn's going to make it work. Not quite. He's going to scrape into the outside wall. That's going to allow Tripp to get back around him. Just when we thought for a second that this duel might have been done and settled, they're back at it yet again with 4 laps left to go here around this half-mile speedway. And once again, we see the crossover happen. Tripp moved up high to close off the run, and Hahn just skirts on down below him. A little bit of contact in turns 1 and 2 there. Hahn going to go way back down low, again down below the apron. Steven Rex going to follow him. And the crossover happens once again. These 2 late model drivers are throwing everything they've got at each other, and we're not even at the main event yet. This is still a heat race, fans. 2 laps left to go. Going to be getting the white flag this time by, and Steven Rex is starting to introduce himself into the picture here. White flag up in the air. And the field's kind of divided into 2 separate packs here. But what a battle we have going on between these drivers. And we might see the move with the white flag coming out. Not quite. Dylan Hahn going to try going way down low, but just not the run off the corner he needed to make it happen. Kenny Tripp going to take home the win for heat race number 3. Dylan Hahn, Stephen Rex, Scott Bendix, Will Salamone, your top 5 here this evening. Now, race fans, drivers going to be given just a moment to get any last-minute preparations they need to do done. Maybe take a quick rest tune break. Whatever they do, they've got just a couple of minutes before we get our main event going here tonight. So don't go anywhere, race fans, and we will be back in just a moment with your main event here at the Irwindale Speedway for the Pro American Late Model Series presented by Harpoon Design. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Irwindale Speedway, and welcome back to season number 2 of the Pro American Late Model Series presented by Harpoon Design. Drivers getting themselves lined up for our main event here this evening. All of our heat races in the books, no drivers eliminated from the heat races, as we are one driver short from hitting that max driver threshold. As we get things rolling, let's take a look down at our starting lineup for our main event. Billy Snodgrass in the number 9, the overdrive entry, making his first ever start here with the series, and he is starting off in position number 1. Second place going to go back to that Exalted number 73. That is Paulie Hartwig Jr. with 2 wins to his name so far this season. Third place going to go back to the temp setters, number 12 of Kenny Tripp. That is our championship leader coming into tonight's event. Fourth place going to go back to the 83 of Chase Johnson, with Aaron Raymond in the 68, rounding out the top 5. Sixth place going to go back to that 42 of Dylan Hahn, with the Droppin' Bombs 45 of Mike Sukup starting off position number 7. P.J. starting out number 8 with Steven Rex and Jonathan Emerson rounding out the top 10. 11th going to go back to Derek Colson with Scott Bendix back in position number 12. 13th going back to Benny Hogan, Wesley Ray Jr. in the 65 and 14th. 15th to Will Salamone, Brent Mex in 16th, David Cannon 17th, Sean Patrick 18th, Johnny B, Brandon Kiger, and Tommy Mitchell rounding out your 21 car field here this evening. iRacing.com pace cars off. Let's get this thing rolling. Green flag here at the Irwindale Speedway. And I'll tell you what, race fans, there are late models everywhere here as everyone battles to try and get any inch of real estate to work with here early on in tonight's event. We see drivers going up high, we see drivers in the middle, we see drivers going all the way down low, and drivers even going all the way down below the apron. Everything is fair game here. Just a matter of where can you make that late model stick. Chase Johnson up into the outside wall early on in this one. That is going to bump him back outside of the top 3 here tonight. And we have 4 wide further back in the back of the field. That was Jonathan Emerson, Mike Sukup, Scott Bendix, and Steven Rex pushing it 4 wide for a second there. And now Derek Colson's here as well. He wants a part of this battle as well. Everyone is trying to figure out something here in this brand new late model stock course. Started out here on the iRacing.com platform, got added about 6 weeks ago. So all these drivers now have a little over of a month of experience under their belt here in this late model stock car. And I'll tell you what, one of the biggest, trouble. That is going to be, looks like Steven Rex around. Caution flag out on the speedway. Steven Rex around, Derek Colson around, Benny Hogan around. Or caution flag number 1. And I'll tell you what, race fans, you can only push it 4 wide for so long before someone makes a little bit of an oopsie. Let's take a look back here, see what all happened to these late model drivers. Currently looking down at that 10 of Steven Rex, the Droppin' Bombs racing driver out of Channahon, Illinois. You see that 4 car going way down low and not quite enough room to come up. That was Benny Hogan. Not quite enough room to come back up. But then that begs the question, what happened to Derek Colson? Because I didn't see Derek Colson really in that picture there. So let's take another look back. Derek Colson down there in the 5, the Tony Stewart Foundation. And Colson moves up high to avoid and actually gets a little bit of a nudge from that Mobile 1 entry. That's Wesley Ray Jr. that he had a little bit of a nudge with. Speaking of Wesley Ray Jr., let's take a ride on board with him and see what all he saw going into that incident. And down into turns 3 and 4. There are drivers trying every single little line they can try and find here. And not a whole lot he could do there to avoid that contact. So just like that, first caution flag going to come out on the speedway, and we see a couple of drivers coming on down to pit lane. Sean Patrick, Johnny B, Benny Hogan, Steven Rex. So it's mostly drivers that were involved in the caution that are down here on pit lane right now. We do have word from race control that Benny Hogan in that number 4 C&R machining entry is going to be getting a penalty for instant responsibility there. Just an end of line penalty, it looks like, though, so not really a big deal because he's already currently being scored back in last place. But that will be an incident against him early on in this race, which is not quite what you want to do because the penalties will get harsher if you cause repeat incidents here in P.A.L.M.S. Billy Snodgrass, Aaron Raymond up here at the front of this thing, though. And we did actually get word from race control that it looks like Mr. Johnny B back there in 17th in that 26 machine will be walking home tonight with a $5 cash bonus courtesy of Edmund Jones for the lucky random qualifying spot here in Palms. So he qualified back in the, looks like 19th position. That's where the dice happened to roll, and that's where Johnny B qualified. Mind you, that is not where he started the race. That is where he qualified on time. So that'll be a nice little bonus for that driver heading out here tonight. But the Iverson.com pace car is off. We have 10 laps in the books here this evening. Let's try this one again, see what we can't make happen here at the Irwindale Speedway. Aaron Raymond, Billy Snodgrass, your front row. Green flag up in the air again. We are all rolling. And immediately we see drivers trying to make any which way work here. A little bit of contact further back in the field. That looks like that was the 6 of Tommy Mitchell that might have gotten a little bit of a nudge there. And we are 3 and 4 wide in the mid-pack yet again. 3 wide there for Tommy Mitchell. And it looks like that is the 88 of Scott Benedicts and Will Salomon there as well. A little bit of a nudge for Stephen Rex. Rex loose off of turn number 2. I'll tell you what, race fans, there are late models everywhere here at Irwindale. And, I mean, I'll tell you what, it's not surprising to see that Irwindale in the real world is probably one of the most popular short tracks on the West Coast. Of course, over in Irwindale, California. And trouble. Drivers around on the speedway yet again. I think we might have seen someone up in the air. But oh boy, that's a lot of drivers. Benny Hogan again, Brent Mex, Johnny B, Wesley Ray Jr., Scott Benedicts. Brandon Kiger might be involved as well. No, Brandon Kiger is just retired from the race outright, so looks like Tommy Mitchell might have been involved there as well. So caution number 2 out on the speedway. And we're going to need to get a couple of replays of that one to really break out what all just happened there. Because I'll tell you what, race fans, these wrecks happen faster than you can really figure them out sometimes. So let's take a look back here, looking down at Scott Benedicts in that number 88 Lucas Oil entry. He's up on the high side in that 19 machine. Down low, that's David Cannon. And a little bit of a nudge up in front of them, actually. That was Brent Mex getting spun around, it looks like. And everyone else just kind of came piling in. So let's take another look back at that. Let's go over to Mr. Brent Mex in the 66 here. One of the Harpoon design drivers. The pie comes up a little bit into the 65 of Wesley Ray Jr. Goes head over heels for a moment. Everyone else just not really an opportunity to get stopped there. Let's take another look back here, see if we can't get an onboard shot with one of these drivers. How about Stephen Rex? Let's see what Stephen Rex saw going into this incident here. Heading down into turns 3 and 4. Going down low just a little bit. And just like that, there are cars everywhere. He slams on the brakes, manages to get it stopped, and gets a little bit of a rear end from behind, but that shouldn't hurt him too much for the rest of the race. Definitely beats plowing the front end into someone. Though it's not grass, Aaron Raymond still your front row, but we have a couple more takers down on pit lane. Sean Patrick came down on the first caution. Stephen Rex has come down again. Johnny B has come down again. And it looks like that is actually it for takers. No, Scott Benedicts also came down in that 88. So 3 drivers electing to come on down to pit lane under this second caution. Of course, 150 laps, that's still a long way to go. If you take fuel now, you're not going to have enough to make it to the end. So it will just be a matter of waiting and seeing how the strategy plays out. Maybe some of these drivers are hoping to have enough cautions to just take a splash under every yellow and maybe stretch it that way, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. Aaron Raymond down on the low line. Billy Snodgrass up high. iRacing.com pace car is off. We're going to try this one again. Let's see what happens here. Going into turns 3 and 4. And green flag up in the air yet again. Snodgrass up high, Raymond down low in that 68 machine. Looking like they're playing a little bit nicer up in the front. I say that, and Raymond goes way down low to try and make a pass happen there. And he is going to make it stick. Not quite the run he needs to get around him here. But he is going to make it stick, and nearly made it happen that time as well. But he had to check up. Didn't want to come up into Snodgrass there. But that time, Raymond's going to make the pass without too much trouble. And now, well, it looked for a second there like Snodgrass was starting to fall back, but now not so much. These two duking it out for the lead. Just like we saw Tripp battling it out in that heat race. A little bit further back behind, drivers fanning out all a little bit around the speedway. P.A.L.M.S. up inside the top 5 in that Bob sub entry. PJ found himself in a bit of trouble in the past couple of races, but right now, early on into this one, he is looking really good right now. He finished back in 14th at Nashville Fairgrounds 2 weeks ago, and the race before that, 16th. And the race before that, he was one of the drivers that did not actually make it through the heat races into the main event. But now, P.J. running inside of the top 5 here this evening. Maybe Irwindale is just his track here tonight, race fans. Just behind him, though, that's the 42 of Dylan Hahn. Dylan has a win to his name. And there's always a little bit of extra pressure knowing that there's a driver behind you that has won before and is looking to try and do it again. But P.J. running comfortably inside the top 5. We're going to have to keep an eye on this driver to see how the rest of his race ends up playing out. Further up in the field, though, these two are still duking it out. Aaron Raymond's back up in the front of this one, and he is up 4 positions from where he qualified. So Raymond definitely happy with how his evening is going right now. But Snodgrass, that driver, of course, making his debut start here with the league, he is not going to make Raymond's life easy. Because it's one thing to be battling out for a win. It's another thing to be battling out for a win on your first ever debut race, because that just makes it all the more significant to these drivers. And especially since we are halfway into the championship, or at least we will be once tonight is done with. The clock is ticking for these drivers to grab as many points as they can. There's not a whole lot of time left to get things figured out. Up in front of them, that is the 88 of Scott Benedicts, who is looking to potentially be the first driver put a lap down under green flag conditions. 31 laps in the books, and our leaders are closing in pretty darn quickly. And speaking of our leaders, they have built up quite the gap. They have almost a 3-second gap to Paulie Hartwig Jr. in that 73 Exalta entry, which is surprising to see because Paulie has just shown so much speed in the past couple of races here tonight. He might just be playing the longer game here, try and save those tires on the 73 Exalta entry and give something to leaders later on in tonight's event. Because look at the lap times. Last time by, Billy Snodgrass, Aaron Raymond both in the 18.5 range. Paulie Hartwig Jr. last time by with a 19.12. So Hartwig leading the field on this group. P.J. down on the low line now. We saw him running way up high earlier on in this one. Now he's going to try and make the lower line work. And once again, now he finds himself with 2 race winners right on his tail. Chase Johnson picked up a win earlier in the season. Dylan Hahn picked up a race win earlier this season. And then behind them, there's our championship leader of Kenny Tripp, who actually, believe it or not, has not picked up a race win here this season. Tripp, no wins to his name, but he is leading the championship standings. Last week finished 5th. Week before that, finished 6th. Week before that, back at Langley, he finished 13th. So no wins to his name, but he does have some really solid consistency, finishing in the top 5, if not the top 10, darn near every single week. Currently running back in the 6th position right now, trying to take home a win for that temp setter's number 12, and he's going to have to check up just a little bit as everyone starting to fan out yet again, starting to get a little bit of a pace differential, and Kenny Tripp's going to push it 3 wide. Oh boy. Everyone got through it. Everyone got through it. But that was a little scary for me up here in the broadcast booth, so I can only imagine what things are like for these drivers down here on the Speedway. 38 laps in the books. Chase Johnson's going to try and go way down low here, down below the apron. And you can already see the marbles starting to build up down there, so it's going to start to get just a little bit slippery down there. And once that starts to happen, you're not going to have a good time. Paulie Hartwig's going to follow Jonathan, or no, that's Chase Johnson. Paulie's going to follow Chase on down to the low line, try and make something work. Kenny Tripp going to do a little bit of the crossover we see him doing all throughout his heat race. And he's going to make contact with Paulie Hartwig. An amazing save by Kenny Tripp. That could have gotten really bad really fast, but he held on to it. And they're going to make contact again going down the front stretch here. Things are looking really dicey for these drivers here. But Tripp just barely has the advantage over Paulie Hartwig here. And as they cross the line again, still side by side, this is the battle for the last 2 positions in the top 5. And just behind them, Dylan Hahn, he wants to get involved in this again. Not quite the run he needs to do it though. He's going to back off just a little bit. And it looks like that's the 80 of Scott Benedict's yet again. Benedict's maybe not entirely happy with what he sees in his rearview mirror right now. Because just behind him, that is the entire rest of the field that are all duking out, all throwing punches at each other with not a whole lot of remorse. So Benedict's is soon going to be having a whole lot on his hands to deal with when the lead pack catches up to him. I would not want to be that 88 right now. It does look like everyone in this mid-pack has started to sort themselves out, maybe play a little bit more politely with each other. We see Chase Johnson down there trying to get the low line to work to get around Jonathan Emerson. Not quite going to make it stick though. Jonathan Emerson though, actually our biggest mover so far tonight. He is up 7 positions from where he started. He started all the way back in 10th. And coming into tonight's event, Emerson currently being scored back in 8th in the championship standings. So getting a top 3 finish here could be a very big deal for him if he manages to make it work. Of course, still haven't even hit lap 50. Still plenty of time left here in tonight's event. Just in front of Emerson in the championship standings will be Wesley Ray Jr., who is currently being scored back to the 18th position. So it looks like if the race were to end where it is right here, right now, that would bump Emerson up a position in the championship standings. Then it's Scott Benedict's, and Benedict's is being scored back in 19th. So that might actually be enough to move Emerson all the way up into 6th in the championship standings. And then he has to deal with Will Salamone. Salamone, however, is right back on at 9th, so definitely will not be enough points to move him past Salamone, especially because Salamone is showing some pretty solid speed here this evening, and he could be looking to close the gap on Emerson. 50 laps in the books, though, officially a third of the way into tonight's event. Everyone, for the most part, has started playing a little bit nicer with each other here. So, how about we take a moment to give the mic on over over to our friends at Harpoon Design. And I'll tell you what, race fans, it's time to bring the noise. Presented by P.A.L.M.S. I'll tell you what, race fans, what some absolutely amazing sounding late model stock cars we have here on the iRacing.com platform. Currently 58 laps in the books. Gotta give a big thank you to our friends over at Harpoon Design for powering our Bring the Noise segment and for sponsoring the league. And a bit of a thank you to Mr. Mike Sukup, Sean Patrick, and Benny Hogan for those onboard cameras there. Currently these three drivers all battling it out back inside, actually just outside of the top 10. Salomon in the 10th position right now. Benny Hogan and Sean Patrick side by side, both trying to figure out a way to get around him here. And as Salomon drifts up to the high line just a little bit, maybe a little bit more than he wanted to through that corner. Looks like he might lose a position to that 4 of Benny Hogan. Yes, he is. Will Patrick be able to capitalize on the mistake? Yes, he will. He's going to get around Will Salomon as well. That's going to bump him back to the 12th position. Everyone else starting to fan out just a little bit up in the front. Drivers are still battling out. Chase Johnson up at the front of this pack. He's the one way down low there in that number 83 machine. That's going to be Jonathan Emerson, Paulie Hartwick Jr., and Kenny Tripp all battling it out here. And Dylan Hahn actually involved in this battle as well. These 5 drivers, all drivers that either have wins to their name or have come pretty dang close to it. Paulie Hartwick Jr. has a win. Dylan Hahn has a win. Chase Johnson has a win. Kenny Tripp, while he does not have a win, is the leader of the championship standings right now. And Jonathan Emerson, he has been having some really solid runs this season as well. A little bit of trouble there for Emerson. Looks like he might have gone a little bit higher through turns 1 and 2 there than he might have intended to. Hartwig closed the gap just a little bit in that Exalta 73, not quite enough to get around him though. And as someone makes a mistake and everyone has to check up a little bit, move themselves around, try and get around one another, all that's doing is allowing the cars behind him to catch back up as well. And we see more drivers diving it way down to the bottom line here as we had a little bit of a scrape against the outside wall. Not quite going to work. Kenny Tripp still stuck down low there in that temp setters number 12. Not quite enough to clear Paulie Hartwick Jr. there, and even if he did, still has to figure out how to get enough of a gap in this little freight train here to actually go back onto the preferred line here. And now we're 3 wide for the 3rd position. A little bit of contact. Oh, dear. That could have gotten really bad really fast, race fans. Some expert reaction time despite all of these drivers to keep that from turning into a complete disaster. And Kenny Tripp's going to shoot through the middle of those 2 cars like it's nobody's business. What a run by Tripp. That's going to bump him up inside the podium position. And he's going to drift a little bit coming out of turn number 2. Probably not intentional, but we're going to say it is to give him a little bit of style points there, because that was pretty cool. And oh, Paulie Hartwood Jr. is going to do the same darn thing coming out of turns 3 and 4. A bit of drift out of 4. Some of these drivers may be starting to lose the front ends of their late models. 70 laps in the books. No one outside... Yeah, no one all the way back to 9th has come down pit lane. Benny Hogan has, and then P.J. Thomas hasn't. So everyone in the top 10, with the exception of Benny Hogan, has not come down pit lane yet. That means we are just about to be halfway into tonight's event, and none of these drivers have taken tires. But hey, speaking of the devil, we got Aaron Raymond coming down onto pit lane, the driver that was up in the 2nd position and had been battling it out with Billy Snodgrass without any remorse for these past 70 laps. He's going to go on down to pit lane. What is the call going to be for that 68 machine? Definitely going to take 2 tires. That much is a no-brainer. Will we see him take 4 under green flag conditions? Looks like the answer is going to be no. Aaron Raymond's going to be coming back out onto the speedway here. That pit stop's going to bump him all the way back down to 17th here tonight, but everyone else still has to come down pit lane too for the most part, so we'll gain some of those spots back. And now we look up at the front at Billy Snodgrass, who is currently trying to get around. That looks like Derek Colson, and actually, yeah, Snodgrass is trying to get around that 5 of Derek Colson. For a second there, I thought he was trying to be thinking about going down into pit lane, but not quite. But now that Snodgrass has such a gap built up from the rest of the field, he can kind of battle with this lap traffic without much to worry about. Especially now that it looks like most of the mid-pack is going to come down and make their pit stops. Kenny Tripp down on pit lane, Paulie Hartwood Jr. down on pit lane, Jonathan Emerson, Will Salamo, and Tommy Mitchell all making their respective stops. What's the call going to be for these late model drivers? 2 tires at least for Paulie Hartwood Jr., 2 tires at least for Kenny Tripp. Will either of them take 4? Looks like the answer is going to be nope. Paulie Hartwood Jr. is going to be taking 4 tires. Emerson back out on the speedway. He's going to be taking 2 tires. Colson, he's just now coming down for our first cycle of green flag pit stops. Dylan Hahn also just now coming down as well. And as we cross the line, we now are halfway through tonight's event, so that might just be the strategy for all these drivers. Try and make it 1 pit stop and be done with it, as most of the drivers that were being scored a lap down have now completed their pit stops. They're all going to be coming back down. Billy Snodgrass, though, still our race leader here tonight, and Billy Snodgrass still has not come down to pit lane, but Chase Johnson, Mike Sukup are going to be making their stops now as well. So as they both come down, and there we go, now our race leader, Snodgrass, is going to be coming down onto pit lane. He stretched that fuel as long as he could, and if nothing else, he now has a couple of extra laps to think about at the end of tonight's event. Going to be slightly newer tires, slightly more fuel than the rest of the field, but will it work out for him? Because green flag pit stops can be an absolute pain to get right here. Now, of course, we see Snodgrass start to fall back positions as he pretty much is the last driver to make his pit stop. But he's going to make it pretty dang fast, only 12.5 seconds down on pit lane. So now, as things begin to cycle out, it's Steven Rex and Benny Hogan battling it out for the race lead. Both of them were drivers that were back in the middle of the pack up until this point, now battling it out up in the front. Benny Hogan up 12 positions, were already qualified. Steven Rex up 7. Sean Patrick just behind them, up 15. So these pit stops have definitely shaken up this field just a little bit. The question is going to be, who is going to make it last to the end of tonight's event? Of course, there always can be another caution. That is always a possibility, but it's not something these drivers should depend on, especially with how far we are into the race. How spread out these drivers are starting to get. And actually, Benny Hogan's going to come back down pit lane. Oh, sure enough. I was misreading our stats here. Steven Rex and Sean Patrick are being marked as having a pit stop to their name because they both stopped under that first caution. That's why they're up at the front here. Neither of them have made the pit stop, so we potentially have trouble. Chase Johnson is stopped on the speedway. He's going to roll there again, so no caution flag going to come out, but what happened to that number 83 machine to get him spun around? Because that is definitely going to hurt him. He was battling up inside the top 5 pretty much all of tonight's event. Let's take a quick look back here and see if we can't see what happened to the driver of the 83 here. Coming across the backstretch here, going down into turns 3 and 4. And oh, got that right rear in the grass just a little bit, and that was enough to snap around. So that's not going to cause a yellow, but that is going to send Chase Johnson back to the 15th position. And now Sean Patrick's going to come back down. That leaves just Steven Rex as the only driver out on the speedway that has not come down at some point after lap 50. His last pit stop was back on lap number 16 here tonight. So ultimately, he does have to come back down pit lane. There is no way that he can just stay out here. It is not possible. Even if he outright was turning the car off and coasting around the speedway for every lap, he does not have to do it and make it happen. So, for now, he's going to be our race leader. We'll see how it works out for him in these remaining, call it about 62 laps here this evening. Just in front of him, though, Dylan Hahn is battling it out with Scott Benedict's. Both these drivers currently being the last 2 drivers on the lead lap here. Benedict's up 6 positions from where he qualified. Hahn actually being scored a position down here in that $42 insurance entry. Hahn being scored back into the 18th position in the championship standings coming into tonight's event. But despite that, he does have a win to his name. He won back at the Langley Speedway and actually finished position number 2 back at Nashville Fairgrounds. And I'll tell you who won Nashville Fairgrounds. That was actually Paulie Hartwig Jr., who is currently being scored the position right behind him in the championship standings. He is being scored back in 19th overall. Paulie has had some amazing runs here this season, but unfortunately he joined a couple of races in. So only 1 drop week here in P.A.L.M.S, so it's going to be hard to make up that deficit. But with the runs he's been having, it's entirely possible that he could make it happen. We'll have to see how these remaining 6 races play out. Still half the season left to go. But Paulie, just 12 years old, 2 wins to his name. And he has been putting in really impressive runs in the last couple of weeks. Steven Rex, though, still staying out up front here in the number 10 machine. That dropping bombs race and entry. It actually looks like he has pit under both of the first 2 cautions, so he might have actually gotten a decent amount of fuel in that late model stock car. I don't think it will be enough to bring him to the end of this race, but it is definitely putting him on a very different strategy from the rest of the field, and I'm really curious to see how it actually plays out for him. Just behind him, though, that is Paulie Hartwig Jr. trying to unlap himself. And just like that, he is going to do it. So Hartwig's going to get put back on the lead lap here. And I imagine some of these drivers further back in the back of the field are starting to hope for a caution right about now, because here in P.A.L.M.S there are 3 lucky dogs rather than just 1 per caution. And if we were to get one right now, that would be Benny Hogan, Derek Colson, P.J. Thomas all getting put back on the lead lap. And sure enough, it was the man we were just talking about, our race leader, of Steven Rex is going to come back down onto pit lane. And once again, the front of our field is the same two drivers that were battling it out all before the pit cycle started. We got Aaron Raymond, we got Billy Snodgrass. They are once again nose to tail. And Kenny Tripp back in position 3, though he is 5 seconds back. He has some ground he has to make up if he wants to get a win here tonight. Of course, a podium still would be really great for his championship outlook, especially since Mark Whitley wasn't able to attend here tonight, and Chase Johnson had that spin earlier on that put him all the way back in 14th. So if things ended how they were right now, Kenny Tripp would still be our championship points leader, even if he doesn't take home the win here this evening. That said, as we cross the line here, 50 laps left to go around this half-mile speedway. Drivers setting lap times roughly in the 18.5 second range, which goes to show just how much these tires can degrade over the course of the race, because Aaron Raymond, Billy Snodgrass' best lap time are in the 18.2s and 18.3s, but now they're setting lap times really high up in the 18.5s, darn near 18.6s. And other drivers throughout the field are setting drivers in the 19-second range. Dylan Hahn setting 18.6s as well, back in the 5th position. So Hahn definitely has some good speed to be working with in that 42 machine. And despite the difference in lap times last time by, Hahn is still getting a little bit of pressure from Mike Sukup here, and Paulie Hartwig Jr. Hartwig's actually closing the gap on Hahn. I thought he might have been able to make the pass there, but not quite. He's going to send it way down low again. Going to see if he can't make the pass happen. Darn near did it. Backed out at the last second. And I don't blame him. That was pretty risky. If he committed to it, there was about a 20% chance of it working out if he got lucky and Hahn saw it happening and managed to get on the brakes. Otherwise, that would have just ended up with Paulie wrecking his race car. So for the best that he didn't quite commit to that move, even if it did cost him a little bit of time here. Still 45 laps left to go around the Irwindale Speedway though, so still some more time for these drivers to potentially make it happen here. And we did get word from race control, and actually the driver right there that we were just talking about, Mike Sukup, is the driver who rolled the lucky starting spot bonus. Of course, that is separate from the qualifying bonus that Mr. Johnny B is taking home here. The lucky starting spot bonus is for... He started back in 7th, which is where the dice landed. If he takes home the win here tonight, he will take home that cash bonus. If not, it will go up by another $5, and it will be rolled again next week. Right now, Sukup running back into the 7th position, which is actually where he started here tonight. So, inside the top 10, we could see him make it happen. Paulie Hartwig Jr. up just in front of him in that 73 was, I believe, the first driver here in P.A.L.M.S to actually take home that lucky starting slot bonus. And if I remember correctly, that was about $45 because it just kept building up. It started around round 7 of season 1, and no one claimed it all throughout season 1, carried on over into season 2, kept on building up, and Paulie Hartwig Jr. finally managed to have it happen. So it got reset on back down to $5, and now Mike Sukup is the driver who has rolled the opportunity to try and take it home here this evening. 111 laps in the books. Got a little bit over 45 more to go. Call it about 48. And Raymond, Billy Snodgrass still up in the front of this thing, and they're starting to look to try and lap the drivers in 7th and 6th. That is just how incredibly fast these two late model drivers are going. They are setting some ridiculously solid speeds here this evening. Still setting lap times in the 18.5 range, while Sukup and Paulie Hartwig setting them in the 18.7s and 18.8. So almost 0.3 of a difference between our two race leaders here and almost anyone else in the field at best. For other drivers, it's almost half a second of difference in terms of pace here. But we have seen stranger things happen here in the Pro American Late Model Series. It looks like Raymond Snodgrass has an incredibly dominant lead right now, but who knows what could happen in these next couple of laps here this evening. And sure enough, both of them catching up to, it looks like, Landon Kiger, who's actually already being scored a lap down. So that's just going to move Kiger down to 15 laps down, as he had some trouble in that very first incident. And now our two race leaders looking to try and put the pressure down on Mike Sukup and Paulie Hartwood Jr. If we take a little bit of a zoom out here, you can see just how much the gap is closed between our leaders and the tail end of the lead pack. Just barely off Raymond. You can actually see that 17. So they're getting there. They are closing the distance. And there's Mike Sukup down there under the timing and scoring tower. They are closing the distance pretty dang fast. And you can see from this top-down view really just where the drivers are wearing the track down. You can see those marbles building up in the corners and actually building up down on the apron on corner exit. It's especially apparent here in turns 3 and 4, where drivers are just burning off chunks of their tires here. And Snodgrass going to take it way down low. He's going to get around Aaron Raymond, but Raymond's going to do the crossover. We've seen the crossover happen so many times here this evening, and they're going to do it once again here tonight. Going to be 30 laps left to go here around this half-mile speedway. And it looks like David Cannon, no, he did not make a pit stop. That was just a little bit of an error with the scorecard for passing down below the apron. He did not make a pit stop. So everyone still rolling out here on the speedway. A little bit of a bumpy start early on into the goings here tonight, but now everyone is running pretty darn smoothly, and the pressure's starting to come down on this pack of leaders outside the top 3, because not only are they having to deal with lap traffic of their own, but now they have the leaders coming up behind them as well. And that is not going to make their jobs easy. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be really difficult for the race leaders to get around this traffic as well, because they're not just dealing with any ordinary lap cars. They're dealing with drivers that are trying to stay on the lead lap, along with drivers that are a lap down, and all of them are battling for position with each other. Raymond Snodgrass, not very surprisingly, going to go way down to the bottom line there, and they're just going to pray that all of these lap traffic cars stay up high. And with almost 25 laps to go, I don't think their wish is going to be granted. Paulie Hartwood Jr., Dylan Hahn, Mike Sukup, these are all drivers that are battling it out up in the upper reaches of the championship. They are not just going to pull over and potentially lose positions with 25 laps left to go here this evening. But sure enough, you can see Mike Sukup in that 46 in a little bit of trouble. That's P.J. Thomas that scraped the outside wall there in that Bob Sub entry. He's going to go way up high on the outside wall to try and let people by. And there's Mike Sukup, who is about to be put a lap down. And there's the race leaders. And the race leaders darn near made contact there, as everyone's trying to figure out just how the heck they want to approach each other here. Because, of course, everyone's still out here battling on the speedway for position one way or another. But generally, the sportsmanlike thing to do is to get out the way of the race leaders. But when we're this late into this race, and when everyone is battling for some pretty significant championship points here, it's going to be very difficult to get people to compromise. Paulie Hartwood Jr. came down pit lane, though. Paulie just came back out on the speedway after a pit stop, so Paulie might not have had the fuel necessary to make it to the end. That's going to bump him back down into 12th. And that's going to throw things into questions for our race leaders, because they pit at a fairly similar time to when Paulie did. So now that makes me wonder, how good are our race leaders on fuel right now? As Snodgrass almost came up and made contact with Kenny Tripp there. They are 2 by 2. Sukup battling it out with Derek Colson. Sukup trying to stay on the lead lap. Colson being scored a lap down already. And there is our race leaders trying to get around him. And oh, a little bit of trouble there. Derek Colson hard into the outside wall. He scraped the tire barrier just a little bit, and that's going to allow everyone to roll on by him. And oh no. I think that might just be a broken suspension on the 5 machine of Derek Colson. Now that's going to pull him down to pit lane, and that might just be Derek Colson's evening gone right there. Let's see if we can't take a really quick look at what happened there to Derek Colson, because that looked like that seriously messed up his... Oh, jeez, what an awful impact for the driver of that number 5 machine. That is definitely going to be the end of the race for that Tony Stewart Foundation number 5. So 17 laps left to go here around the Speedway. Billy Snodgrass still your race leader, and he's actually built up more than a half-second gap over Aaron Raymond for possibly the first time this entire evening. And Raymond's actually starting to fall back here a little bit. Billy Snodgrass, last time by, 0.2 of a second faster than Aaron Raymond. So things might start getting difficult for the driver of that 68 machine. He's got to make up that second somehow or another in just 15 more laps. That's not going to be an easy ordeal, especially as he has to navigate around this lap traffic. Further back in the field though, Dylan Hahn, Kenny Tripp battling it out, just like they have been pretty much all race here. And again, drivers on all sorts of different laps from each other here also in the mix, like Paulie Hartwood Jr. He is currently being scored a lap down here. And he's going to get in between Kenny Tripp and Dylan Hahn, so that's going to spread the two of them apart. And now, Hahn is starting to put the pressure down on Jonathan Emerson. Emerson, we mentioned, got upside into the podium earlier on in tonight's event, and then we just kind of forgot about him, but he's still running mighty darn strong up there inside the top 3. But he's got Dylan Hahn just behind him, and just behind the two of them, that is Paulie Hartwood Jr., who is probably on newer tires than the both of them and really trying to get himself going. He is not going to make it easy for any of these late model drivers, because right now, Paulie Hartwig, he's hoping for a caution right now, and he needs to get around Benny Hogan and Steven Rex if he wants to get the lucky dog. And I imagine that's exactly what he has on his mind right now, is just how can I get myself the lucky dog if a caution were to come out in these next 11 laps. Looking back up further in the field though, Mike Sukup, Steven Rex, both teammates battling it out for position here. They're battling for the final spot inside the top 5 here. Both drivers being scored a lap down, but still very much in contention with each other here. Rex going to make the pass happen just a little bit, and do we have trouble? Dylan Hahn's down on pit lane. Dylan Hahn was running up inside the top 5, battling for a podium position, and it looks like Hahn does not have the fuel to make it to the end. Jonathan Emerson's coming down as well. If Emerson was inside the top 3, that's another driver that doesn't have the fuel to make it to the end. I'll tell you what, race fans, that just threw everyone's pit strategies into question here. Does Snodgrass have enough fuel? Does Raymond have enough fuel? Because as these drivers go on down to pit lane, that's going to leave just Snodgrass and Raymond on the lead here tonight. Not the first time in Palms where we have seen drivers run out of fuel with less than 10 to go, but I'll tell you what, race fans, it has been a pretty dang long time since we have seen that happen. And actually, if I remember correctly, that happened to Kenny Tripp last season. I want to say at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, was running up inside the top 3, had to come down for fuel with less than 5 laps to go. Tripp currently being scored back into the 6th position right now. You know, maybe my ears are deceiving me here, race fans, but it's starting to sound like we're hearing a lot of lifting and coasting by these drivers around the speedway. But with 5 laps left to go, big high five up in the air by our flagman. Is Billy Snodgrass going to have the fuel necessary to make it to the end here? 4 laps left to go as he crosses the line. And Aaron Raymond's coming down to pit lane. Raymond doesn't have the fuel to make it to the end. Just like that, Billy Snodgrass is going to be the last driver on the lead lap. And he pit last time on lap 78, which was maybe, it was about 2 laps later than everyone else. But still, I don't know if he's going to be able to make it. Though really, with everyone on the speedway being scored a lap down, he can lift and coast pretty much as he needs to. He just needs to get around the speedway 2 more times and he'll be good to go. And sure enough, not going to come on down to pit lane that time by. White flag up in the air. Billy Snodgrass has got this unless his car completely stalls out in the next half of a mile. I'll tell you what, race fans, we've seen some pretty wild finishes here to the Pro American Late Model Series, but I think that this is the first time we have ever seen a race end with only a single driver left on the lead lap. Billy Snodgrass going to take home the win here in his debut start with the league. And I'll tell you what, race fans, he darn near made it look kind of easy. Snodgrass going to do a bit of a cool down lap. Will we see him do a burnout? I'll tell you what, if there were ever a race victory to do it, I think that this would be one that would warrant it. The driver out of Newton, North Carolina. Will we get a bit of a burnout from our race winner? He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it. We heard him rev the engine a second there. Will we be getting it? Looks like the answer is going to be no. Oh, maybe, possibly. There we go. Just letting the field go on by for real quick. Billy Snodgrass going to take home the win for round number 6 of the Pro American Late Model Series. Alrighty, race fans, we will be back here in just a moment with interviews with your top 3 finishers here this evening. So don't go anywhere, race fans, and we will get a word with Billy Snodgrass. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Irwindale Speedway, and welcome back to the Pro American Late Model Series presented by Harpoon Design. Round 6 now in the books here this evening, and Billy Snodgrass, you came, you saw, and you won in your debut race. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done here tonight?
Feeling pretty good. It was a fun race. Honestly, I hate this track. The first laps I made on it was in practice today. It was just crazy. Fun though.
Yeah, for a track you seem to hate so much, you darn near seem to be in a league of your own. You and Aaron Raymond were setting some incredibly fast lap times, so evidently you had something going on here that no one else did. What do you think might have made it happen here tonight?
I'm gonna be honest with you. When I was behind Aaron, he was driving into the corner way too hard. Like I was backing up my corners, and I think that's the only reason I was keeping my tires on it, running the bottom, and being able to run off the corner so hard.
Well, you definitely managed to make it work here, so a big congratulations for such an amazing run here tonight. And also congratulations on being, I believe, the first ever race here in Palms where only one driver finished on the lead lap. That is a little bit funny, but you made it happen here. And
Yeah,
next week, heading on over to South Boston, is that a track maybe you're a little bit more fond of?
it is, but uh, I don't know if I'm quite as good at it.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, we'll just have to see how it plays out, but tonight you're setting a very high standard for yourself. But of course, before I let you go and celebrate your win and go get ready for next week, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Snodgrass. Who do you want to thank for getting you up here?
I want to thank uh, Overdrive Clearing and Grading and AL Racing Simulators for the sponsor, and just um, Stephen Witten for telling me about this.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
And finishing back in position number two, Mr. Steven Rex. It's about time we get the rest of the Dropping Bombs racing crew up here in the broadcast booth. You got a podium here tonight, and what a crazy race it's been. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done here?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I had that early on incident. Um, had to pit a few times, to keep fixing damage. I got out, came from the back, and just I picked my line or my lap. I picked my lap. I knew what lap time I wanted to run and just be consistent. And halfway through the run, guys were just coming backwards to me, so it kind of made it easy. I was really good on fuel. I never had an issue with that, and yeah, I'll take a second place finish. I don't know what Billy did. He was saying he ran harder. I couldn't believe he put a lap on the entire field.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy run, and I'll tell you what, between you and me, I was a little bit skeptical of how much of an alternate strategy you were running from everyone else on pit lane, but evidently it came back to bite me in the butt when we had several drivers run out of fuel with 5 to go. So you made it work here. I'll never judge your pit strategy ever again. You got it done here tonight.
Yeah, thanks. I just after seeing what Billy did, I wish I would have been, running fives or something instead of, the sevens. Pick up that 2/10 and maybe could have been with them at the end.
Yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed running at such a wide track here this evening, because next week, heading on over to South Boston Speedway. How you feeling going to a much narrower place than this one?
Yeah, I got a lot of laps there, and I don't run much here. I don't know how many races I've done in this league. I'm just part time. So after a good run this week, I hope I can make it next week.
Good deal. Well, as always, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Steven. Who you want to thank for getting that 10 machine up here?
Yeah, all my buddies that I race with all the time over at Dropping Bombs, and you for putting on the or putting up the broadcast. The guys over at Palms, Matt and Steve. It's great what they're doing out here. It's a fun league, and everybody else competing in it. I don't run all the time, but everybody's very respectful. And man, it was some good racing out there today. Four wide, and there was always that one guy that knew, oh, I'm not in the best spot. I better back out. So it made for some good racing. I mean, look at the lack of yellows. That says it right there. But great series, great time. Can't wait to come back.
Good deal. Well, I hope to see you next week. And as always, congratulations on the podium finish here tonight.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Uh-oh, looking like we're having a little bit of difficulty with Discord. That can't be good. See if we can't. Oh, are you up here, Benny?
Yes, sir. I just heard it.
Oh, okay,
jungle.
cool. It says you're in another chat, but I'll take your word for it.
No, I'm here.
Well, we got a rookie driver taking home the win here this evening, and we got another driver making their debut race here with the league, finishing on the podium. What a crazy race it's been. How'd you manage to make it happen here tonight?
Well, I just knew from some of the guys in the practice session, I just knew it was going to be about saving tires because everybody gets on the high side, and it's just a matter of how long you save tires and at what point, pick a spot here or there, pass a car. But uh, ultimately, it was just if I could get to halfway, know that I can make it the rest of the way, and then come out and immediately start saving tires and saving fuel. And I guess that's what paid off in the end, really.
Yeah, whatever you did, it definitely seemed to work out for you, because looking at our timing and scoring chart, you actually are the most improved driver here this evening with 10 spots picked up over the course of this race. So, congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
Looking like next week, though, heading to South Boston Speedway, quite a different track from this one. How you feeling heading on over there?
I actually love South Boston. I like all the short tracks. That's part of the reason I wanted to be part of this league. I just kind of happened on it one evening and got to really feeling like I fit in with some of the guys here that run it, and especially Matt. I mean, he was. I like the way he ran the league and some of the practices and the host that he were doing, and so I just really love the short tracks, and so that's my favorite thing about it.
Good deal. Well, it's always great to see some new names out here in the field, and it's always really exciting to see new names up here on the podium. What a run y'all all put on here tonight. But of course, before I let you go and celebrate your podium and start getting ready for South Boston next week, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Hogan. Who do you want to thank for getting you up here tonight?
I'd like to thank first off Matt. Uh, he let me come into the league mid-season. I don't know if that's a thing that usually happens or not, but him and Brandon Kiger, they've feel like they've kind of taken me, and let me come in and really made me feel part of the league. Outside of that, on my car, I got CNR Machining. That's the machining uh, business that I run, and the funds from it help do some of this. And on the back, I've got my wife's boutique, Amber Lynn. She's on Instagram, Facebook. She makes her own jewelry and sells it, and she's got a boutique little spot, so anybody can find her and check her out.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out. Congratulations on the podium, and I look forward to seeing you at South Boston next week.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks again.
So you heard it here first, race fans. Your top three finishers here this evening: Billy Snodgrass, Stephen Rex, Benny Hogan. Do have one more announcement from race control before we close it off for the evening. Johnny V, who is the driver who got the lucky random qualifying spot bonus, got extra lucky here tonight because he got the random finishing bonus here tonight as well, which the dice roll landed on 16th. So maybe not the finish Johnny B was looking for, but he does have a nice little bonus to take home with it and get himself ready to go for next week at South Boston Speedway. But before we close it off for the evening, though, let's take a quick look down at our race results. Of course, these are all unofficial, but tonight was one of the cleanest races we've had all season, so I really don't think there's going to be any penalties handed out, but I can't say that one way or another. But hey, rookie driver Billy Snodgrass taking home the win here this season, and the only driver to finish on the lead lap. Still believe that's the first time that's ever happened in Palms, and pretty significant feat that he managed to pull it off here tonight. Finishing back in position number 2, that's the 10 of Stephen Rex, getting his best ever finish here with the league. And third place going to go back to that rookie driver of Benny Hogan. Fourth place going to go back to another Dropping Bombs Racing driver. That is Mike Sukup, rounding out position number 4, with Kenny Chip, championship leader, rounding out the top 5. Aaron Raymond finishing back in position number 6 with Paulie Hartwig Jr. in 7th, Jonathan Emerson 8th, Dylan Hahn in 9, and Sean Patrick, another Dropping Bombs racing driver, rounding out the top 10. 11th could go back to Scott Bennix, Chase Johnson in 12th, Will Salomon in 13th, David Cannon 14th, and PJ Thomas in the Bob Sub entry, rounding out your top 15. Johnny B, the driver who picked up the lucky qualifying bonus and the lucky finishing bonus, going to be finishing back in 16th position. 17th going to go back to Tommy Mitchell in the 6th. 18th to Derek Colson. 19th to Brandon Kiger. 20th to Wesley Ray Jr. And Brent Mex in that 21 going to round out the field here this evening. But for now, that's all we've got here from the Pro American Late Model Series. That is all we've got here from Irwindale Speedway. And as always, a big thank you from everyone here at P.A.L.M.S out here competing on the Speedway. Big thank you from me up here in the broadcast booth. And of course, a massive thank you from our friends over at Harpoon Design for helping making this whole thing happen. Thank you all for coming out, race fans. And I look forward to seeing y'all next week at the South Boston Speedway. Have a good evening.